Hi, so I want to explain blockchain and Bitcoin to you tonight. So, blockchain is known as the trust protocol. It's a way of establishing trust over the internet, so that you can exchange anyone anywhere can exchange assets of value, so they can make transactions. The transactions are all public and they are all um, verified and immutable. So you can't change anything. You can't go back and change any of the transactions. You can't. You can only go forward, and there's a way that makes it so that it's hard to manipulate transactions going forward. So if you tried to enter a false transaction going forward, it wouldn't be verified by the entire network as a whole. And the whole network is decentralized, it's distributed all over the world on thousands of computers, maybe millions. And it is really hard to, it being this distributed and this large makes it hard to kind of hack or take control of, versus like there are a lot of sort of what are called honeypots, where it would be like a banking or Facebook, some kind of store of a lot of information online. And if you gained access to that information, you could get access to all kinds of people's data or credit card numbers or bank statement, whatever. Just if you get into one of those sort of more, they're known as trusted third parties. So it would be something like a bank. A bank verifies that you are who you say you are, and you do have the assets you do, and that someone else is who they say they are and has assets they do, and then it can allow you to make transactions with that person. But you need that intermediary to kind of verify both of you, so that you can both trust each other as each other and verify that you have the assets that you say you do. With blockchain, you don't need to have like a bank. You would have just it's sort of a ledger. So it's like a constantly updating ledger. It has about 7 transactions a second that it can record. So it's not that fast compared to some other ledgers, but it does have more security, and they're working on improving its speed. Yep.
How do you spell blockchain? How do you spell blockchain?
Blockchain.
One word.
Yep.
Okay.
And it's given that name because there are blocks of transactions, and they're placed on a chain, and the chain can't be broken. So that's why it's immutable. You can't go back and change records, because you'd have to change all the records after it. But there's a cryptographic sort of lock on doing that. You have to recompute all these numbers to do that. And it would be really hard to, unless you had over 50% of the network controlled by you. So if a malicious group or user controlled most of the computing power on the network, they could theoretically do that. But it would be almost impossible for like an individual to just sort of commit fraud, or what they would have, what the thing that they would do would be double spending. So they'd say they gave you money, and then they actually gave it back to themselves. So they make, like they say in the sort of generally accepted series of events that all the computers see, that you gave someone however many bitcoins, some transaction, and then they'd make their own secret block like transactions saying they didn't. And then they'd have to keep putting out blocks that have that transaction, and they could do that if they had most of the computers voting for them, saying that they are the majority. But it would be hard to do that just because it's sort of like most of the computers won't accept it unless it's like a mathematical thing. So if you'd have to stay ahead and make it the longest chain, and you'd have to keep having more computing power than the other chain. But the chances that someone got the majority of the computing power on this huge network is unlikely. Yes?
Do you have to have a blockchain account?
No. So you would have a wallet.
Okay.
So right now I'm not sure how many places there are to get cryptocurrency. There are a few online places where you can use fiat currency, which is like government issued money, to get cryptocurrency. You can get cryptocurrency from mining, which is a way of maintaining the blockchain. So you download a copy of this ledger, and by downloading it and trying to guess the next block, like the next group of transactions, there's like a key you have to guess, and if you guess that key, you get Bitcoin. But it's set up so that it's harder or easier, like the key they have to guess, based on how many computers, how much processing power there is in the network. So it's set up so that it would have to take 10 minutes on average to guess that sort of key. And then once it guesses that key, all these other computers verify it on the network, and then it goes onto the blockchain. So that's a new block being added to the blockchain. So every 10 minutes it has a block added that has all the transactions from those past 10 minutes.
Interesting. Okay. Thank you.
So, right, so Bitcoin, sorry about that. So Bitcoin is generated by the blockchain as an incentive to keep maintaining it and guessing the new blocks and adding to it. So you have to have a stored copy of it and then guess sort of the new one, the new block. But it's hard for one computer to do that. It's kind of like winning the lottery because it's just random. I mean, it's based on how many computers you do. It's like if you have a bunch of lottery tickets, you're more likely to win. But it's just an even chance based on computing power. Yep.
How do you spell Bitcoin?
Bitcoin.
One word. Okay.
Yep.
So Bitcoin is on the blockchain.
Right. It's a cryptocurrency. So you get it as a reward for maintaining the blockchain. And they also generated some initial Bitcoin with the Genesis block, which was the first block ever added. And that was like a special block because they had to just pick it and start it and then start going from there.
So can you get real things with Bitcoin, or is it just a online currency?
You can if someone accepts it. So it's sort of like a store of value. It's like gold being a store of value, that there are some practical uses, but it's mostly inflated. Like the monetary value is more than what you would pay for just some metal. So it's like that something is given this value and it's like a commodity almost. Like it's a store of value. The reason it can be a store of value versus something like a song or movie or something else that's digital and on the internet and like content is that because you could have like a piece of art and it's worth so much money in real life, like in the physical world, but you'd have like a picture on the internet of it and it's not worth anything. So the reason this is so you can use this to as like an asset for transactions to transfer value is that it's not you can't duplicate it, so you can't make copies of it just arbitrarily. That's what you would be trying to do if you said you spent however many bitcoins by sending them to someone, and then at the same time you tried to make your own blockchain saying you didn't, or that you sent it to someone else.
So if I wanted to buy a piece of art with Bitcoin, you could do it if the owner of the art accepted it.
Right. So you can actually get, I think, a Bitcoin debit card, and spend it at certain places that accept it. But it's not put out by any government. It's just sort of like at the store's discretion or company's discretion.
And so that's where the international comes in, that you could use Bitcoin around the world. It's not tied to the dollar or the euro or.
Right, and you wouldn't have to pay like a currency conversion rate. So you would probably have to pay some fee for using like a Bitcoin or a cryptocurrency market to change the like legal government money into Bitcoin. But you would be able to send that to any other country, person, relatively free. There's no transaction cost.
And you do it all through the internet.
Right.
Okay. Interesting. Are there other types of currency? Okay, I understand the blockchain is kind of the foundation. Then you have Bitcoin. Are there other cryptocurrencies that are similar to Bitcoin?
Right. So there are some other cryptocurrencies and they're based on blockchains. So pretty much every cryptocurrency you'd see would be based on a blockchain. And the blockchain would have some kind of reason
Okay.
for existing. So it would be a ledger of usually something like transactions, but it could also be a ledger of something like property titles. So you could say who has what property titles at a given state in time or point in time, because that's something that's susceptible to fraud. So multiple people can claim the same property title. And if you forge documents, you can't really, it's hard to tell what's going on. With this sort of ledger, it just shows who has the property title at the outset. And then if they transfer that to someone, you can just see the transfer of the title. And there's one title and it can't be duplicated
So
based on how this works.
we've seen that with valuable vehicles, where when they are selling them, they do the search of the title to make sure that chain of title is valid, because it's not like real property that you can search the property records. That you want to make sure the vehicle's authentic, and then you've got to trace the title as well, make sure it's legitimate.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it could work with all kinds of stuff. It could work with, artwork or.
Yeah, that's a great example. That makes sense. Again, there's not a centralized system through the government to authenticate and keep track of art.
Right.
So every cryptocurrency has a blockchain. There isn't just one massive blockchain.
Right. They have separate blockchains, and sometimes they have them to sort of help launch a business. So that's a whole different thing. But pretty much all of them are based on blockchain, or the main ones. So there will be like an Ethereum one, which is another one, or Ripple, that they have cryptocurrencies and they're based on blockchain. So they're based on this protocol, and you can mine them the same way that you'd mine a Bitcoin by maintaining their blockchain. But they have sort of different flavors or reasons for existing, or like kind of markets that you would use them for. So like this one might be better at this, or that one might be better at that. Like just like how Bitcoin's 7 transactions per second, this one might be faster, but it has these other features. So this is like the dominant one. It's the oldest. Bitcoin was first kind of stipulated in 2008, late 2008, in a paper by a person or group named Satoshi Nakamoto. And he published this cryptographic paper to like an email mailing list. And then in January 2009, they started the Bitcoin blockchain. So Bitcoin is the oldest, and I think right now it's the most valuable one.
And so it's about 11 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, interesting. Well, thank you. This is very informative. It makes a lot more sense. I had no idea what any of this was or meant. Thank you.
Yep. So if that's it, we can end. No more questions.
I'll let you know if we have more. Perfect.
Okay, thanks.
Oh my God, and how that was good. I understand it a lot more